Enter the action zone. Lock access now.
What's up guys, Cody here with another video for you guys today, and today I'm going to be doing the top 9 movies that made me as a child. That means that if there was a movie that I grew up with, it pretty much set in stone my love for film, and I want to share those 9 movies with you. What Movie 1 did one today, and I think there's some kind of trend going around with Blu-tubers and the movie community in general. So these are my top 9 movies that I grew up with when I was a kid that pretty much made me into the film fan that I am today. Alright guys, so this is in no particular order. I'm just pulling things as I go, but the first one here is Pokemon the first movie, and I want to talk about this in the best way I can because I'm going to talk about it like a weirdo. I am a kid of the 90s, if you can't tell. And I know there's a generation gap for people to really even remotely care about things like Pokemon and stuff like that. But underneath a movie centered around a 10-year-old going off on an adventure and catching Pokemon and battling other Pokemon, this movie actually has some dark undertones that are really relatable, actually. And this is coming from someone who, was born with with autism, and I don't know if a lot of people are really going to follow me this well, but I love this movie for one reason only, and that is the story arc of Mewtwo. That was so beautifully done, and I think that the movie is underrated for that purpose. Mewtwo was a Pokemon created by humans, and he felt like he was, developed and made for one purpose that he didn't agree with. And eventually he took his frustration out and his anger out on the humans, and started his own cloning facility, creating all these Pokemon that he felt like that were more superior, and pretty much challenged any human and Pokemon that was siding with the humans to battle him. And eventually he learned that there is a underlying quote in this movie that I live my life by.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
And as a kid, those lines are a little bit more form-fitting and powerful for a child. And as someone who was trying to struggle to grow up and understand his identity and where he was going to go in life, why people picked on him, why people were essentially treating him like he was worthless, this movie has a little bit more meaning to me than I feel like most people do. Also, I have a very nostalgic memory with this movie. My mom took me to go see it as a kid, so of course I'm going to always associate this movie with my mother. It is an emotional movie. By the end of the movie, I feel like everybody in my family watching it with me, scene with Pikachu crying over Ash's petrified, stoned body. It's a little dark for a children's movie, is it not? But then again, we had some pretty dark movies as kids. Mufasa's death is still pretty traumatizing. But yeah, Pokemon the first movie, guys, such a nostalgic film for me. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me, but absolutely love it. Next up, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze. This movie was a constant repeat film on my television as a kid every night. My cousin Bo and I, when he had come out for the summer, he had this VHS tape. I remember the VHS had this green paper label on the front of it, and we would always pop it in at night before we went to bed, and we would just enjoy it. And I had so much love for this film as a kid that I think we wore this tape out. I remember popping the VHS in, and the first thing you would see is the Burger King Kids Club intro.
One kid's meal, please, right away.
And followed up by that was a trailer for Suburban Commando, starring Hulk Hogan, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze was one of those movies that I really just fondly attached my cousin Bo to. You know, it's a movie that we shared, you know, a lot of fun little laughs and memories with. And of course, you've got to understand, I know a lot of people are going to say that the first one is essentially the best out of the three, which I agree with. It is definitely the most well-written and, you know, more serious Ninja Turtles movie. But this one I love because it's a live-action cartoon. I really enjoy this movie. Vanilla Ice singing a ninja rap, and, you know, just in general, babies, they're babies. Like, it's like they're really the most quoted of the three, and I really enjoy this movie. Great nostalgic, fun romp. I love it. Arguably the successor to Ninja Turtles, we have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, which I think is the ultimate nostalgic movie to grow up with when we were kids, as you know, in the 90s, man. The Power Rangers were already a big hit in 1993 through, you know, 94. So of course we had to have a silver screen appearance by the movie, or the Rangers, of course, on film. And I don't think this movie could have done any better, bringing us one of the greatest movie villains ever, Ivan Ooze. There's something about this movie that just screams 90s, and it's because I feel like we were essentially the Ooze slime generation. Secret of the Ooze, Ivan Ooze. We had a whole ass studio dedicated to Nickelodeon with a slime fountain. I think that we had the greatest childhood when it came to slime and ooze, man. That villain in this movie, I dare you to say that he was not a well-written villain for anything but this film. It was like a purple Freddy Krueger. It was a fun character to watch on screen. Even today, I love Ivan Ooze's character. And it's just a fun movie, a great nostalgic throwback. I just enjoy it. A great action adventure movie. Really love it. The next movie that I'm going to talk about, unfortunately, has not been released on Blu-ray. It does have a DVD copy, and I don't have a copy of it on DVD, but I do have it digitally, and that is Inspector Gadget. I know this movie has a lot of love and a lot of hate with certain people, and I've joked about it before. I feel like only like 1% of the community in this world actually enjoys that movie, and I'm exaggerating, of course, but I grew up with this movie. I loved the movie. I remember the movie being a rewarded experience when I was a kid. My mom took me to go see it in theaters. I had a great time with it, and there was a very, I guess, traumatic situation going on in my life where we had to move. As kids, my mom ended up, having a fight with my stepdad, and it was pretty rough. I remember it. I remember a giant ass Dell computer being thrown at a human body. Oh boy. My mother was a little spunky, but yeah, we were obviously moving from Indiana to Alabama, and I remember that year, the thing I wanted the most for Christmas that year, because we moved in November of 1999, I wanted to have the movie Inspector Gadget, and my mom surprised me with the VHS tape when we moved. And when we ended up moving into the house and everything, the first thing we did was lay down and watch that movie that night as soon as we got to Alabama. I still have a lot of fond memories of that movie, and it's probably the one thing that I talk about the most as like a a film that I feel like not a lot of people like to talk about. I have a banner dedicated to this movie. I have a poster. I have all kinds of rare merchandise. I've done a video on it if you guys want to check it out. But I do think that Inspector Gadget is probably one of the biggest, if not the number one movie that pretty much built my love for film, actually. I just think it's a really fun looking movie. It's a very short movie. It's like an hour and 10 minutes long. And of course, Stan Winston helped make that movie look as good as it did. And I don't know. I really feel like that movie gets a lot of crap because it's associated with an already existing cartoon. And I think it was just a fun movie to watch as a kid, and I still love watching it. So yeah, Inspector Gadget. Next up, we have The Mask here. This movie, oh boy, this is probably my introduction to, you know, essentially what would probably be like a mix of adult humor with, you know, a zany cartoon. This was my first Jim Carrey movie that I ever watched. My dad had a VHS copy of it, and I used to watch this like all the time. I loved Jim Carrey, and even now today, he's still one of my favorite comedians. But this movie pretty much made me into the really weird, zany, like crazy person that I am today. I used to always want something The Mask related. I had the video game, I had the soundtrack, I always had Cuban Pete on loop. I'm not even joking when I say I was doing the Cuban Pete dance, like just step by step doing that dance. Okay, I was doing line dancing. Okay, this movie pretty much built me as the character I am today. So yeah, this movie, man, I'm telling you, it's probably one of the biggest influences to who I am as a movie buff today. Going from zero to hero to villain, Jim Carrey playing the Riddler in Batman Forever, and I know everybody's sighing with a gasp and, you know, tired of hearing it. Like, I have an obsession with this movie, okay? I just recently did a whole little, like, skit of me being upset with Kevin Smith about having the extended, like, Schumacher cut of this movie. But Batman Forever, I've talked about it so much that I feel like I don't know what else to say other than this is the Batman movie that I grew up with. I feel like the of the Batman movies that I grew up with, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do a twofer here because it's going to be easier to get this out of the way. Batman Forever was the live action movie that I grew up with. In 1995, I remember going to see this in theater with my dad, and it was shortly before he passed away, so I have a very sentimental attachment to this movie. I love the look of the movie. It just had this atmosphere about it that was so attractive. As a kid, Jim Carrey was a really great villain in it. I think he did a great job pretty much playing a pseudo, I guess, I wouldn't say pseudo, because he really took inspiration from Frank Gorshin's Riddler in the 1960s Batman. You can really tell. I really enjoyed this movie. It's a fun movie to go back on, and I still love watching it. And of course, the other Batman movie here, this is obviously the better of the two, but Batman Mask of the Phantasm, I feel like, is an underrated Batman movie that needs to be watched by every Batman fan. It is done so well, and it just underperformed so much back when we were kids and on the theatrical screen that it gained a really nice cult following later in life. But I do believe every time I tell someone about this movie, I'm like, look, the best Batman movie is nothing that you've seen in live action. It will always be this movie. I feel like it's a much more serious, grounded, noir-style Batman movie with a great voice cast, great animation. It's perfect down to the last minute detail. I know I'm using that meme, but it is just like, it's amazing. I think it gets undercut by what everyone feels like is the best Batman movie. This is it right here, bar none. Okay, yeah. Batman Mask of the Phantasm. All right, guys, winding it down here, we have two movies that are back-to-back again because they kind of go hand in hand. I remember when I was a kid being obsessed with these two films, and that is Jaws and Jurassic Park. Two Spielberg movies that pretty much defined my love for theatrical experiences. Jaws came 20 years before I was born, but my mother introduced it to me because I was obsessed with the sharks. I was obsessed with sharks, and I told my mom I'm not going to be afraid of this movie, and I wasn't. I had an obsession with this movie so much so, I had an original 1978 VHS release of the movie, or was it 78? I don't remember when this movie came out. I know it was in the 70s, and I'm sure someone's going to correct me down below. But yeah, Jaws was, I'm looking right now for the release date of this movie. Somebody's going to tell me down below, so I'm gonna let that happen. But I remember having an original copy of Jaws on VHS and just wearing it down and enjoying it, and eventually getting the second movie and then the other two on VHS and renting them. They were fun movies to watch as a kid. It introduced you to your kind of like first, I guess, horror related stuff. You see people getting eaten and blood spurting around and stuff. Yeah, Jaws was like my little introduction to, thriller horror, I guess, and I never was afraid of this movie. Most people said the quote of this movie was, when you thought it was safe to go back in the water or something like that. I never had a problem with this movie. I've never been scared of movies, but Jaws was just absolutely love it. And Jurassic Park, this is my generation's Jaws. Jurassic Park is essentially what set in stone the look of a movie. It was the movie-going experience that changed a theatrical experience forever. Steven Spielberg utilized CGI, and that's essentially where we are today because of this movie. Jurassic Park still holds up. Even on 4K, I think it's a beautiful movie. I think the movie has some very endearing qualities, considering it's a movie about giant monster dinosaurs in a theme park. I think Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm are really great characters that are like relatable, and you really care about those characters. And I just love some of the quotes. The movie is just a masterpiece. I don't care what anyone says. Jurassic Park is probably the one of the greatest Spielberg movies, in my opinion. That's just because we have a generation gap. Again, I warned you guys, generation gap thing. This was my introduction to a Spielberg movie. Jaws was my second introduction. So I of course, E.T. and stuff like that. Everybody has an opinion on what the greatest Spielberg movie is, but I think Jurassic Park really is, if I had to say, probably the most decade-defining 90s film of my time. I feel like it's just a beautiful looking movie that I still love to watch every now and then. So guys, that is the top 9 movies that made me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment below the top 9 movies that you grew up with as a kid. It doesn't matter what generation you're from, whether you're from the 70s, 80s, 90s, or now. Comment below and tell me what you guys loved and what made you the movie buff that you are. And I will be back with more videos soon. Stay tuned for more. I have a lot of fun stuff coming your way, so definitely check it out. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.